Hello there guys, and welcome back to another epic Inexorable video. In this video, we're taking a look at graphing quadratic equations. Now again, there's some stuff on the board, we'll talk about that in a second. First thing I'll say is we really haven't done much graphing before. All we've done in terms of graphing is in the introduction to quadratics video, I drew some silly parabolas and quadratics on this side of the board. But we have not actually talked about them in detail, so this is going to be the first video, okay? So it's almost like it's quadratics, but it's a sort of fresh area of it. It should intuitively make a lot of sense. That's what I'm hoping for. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, before we draw anything, let's just have a look at these notes, okay? I say notes, but this is all new information, so this is stuff to remember, but you will not have seen this before, especially not in my videos. So, in the graph of y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, c will always be the y-intercept. So if you want to plot a graph, like, for example, let's just talk about this, y equals x squared minus 7x plus 10. What is c? Well, c is 10. So immediately we know that, let's say that's the point, let's say that's like 10, yeah? That point there is on the graph because that is the y-intercept, because this is the y-axis. So boom, that's on the graph. You can do that every time. C will always be the y-intercept, so that's something to know. The next thing, if a, remember a is going to be what's in front of the x squared term, a in this question is 1. If a is greater than 0, the graph is going to make a happy face. It's going to make a sort of curve that goes upwards like that, downwards and then upwards, like a happy face. If a, again a is the term in front of the x squared, if a is less than 0, so let's say a was minus 1, so maybe we have minus x squared or something like that, or minus 2x squared. If a is less than 0, the graph is going to make a sad face that goes like that. Got some pictures here, but yeah, you get the gist of it. It's going to make a sad face. The way that I remember that is literally just, if it's positive, it's happy. If it's negative, it's sad, right? It's like not too difficult to remember that, I guess. And the last thing is, the graph will touch the x-axis when y is 0. That should be a fair thing to sort of think about, because if we actually look at a coordinate axis, when is y 0? When? Where? Label a point where y is 0. Well, you say, okay, 0, 0, that's when y is 0, that's right. But what's the coordinate of, let's say, something like this? You might say that looks like, I don't know, maybe 2, like 2, 0, something like that on the x-axis. What about this? Or maybe that's like 5, 0 or something like that. Notice how 0 is always at the end? Because the y-coordinate of any point along the entire x-axis, positive or negative, going on to infinity, the y component of that will always be zilch, 0. So, when y is 0, we are on the x-axis all the time, which means that when y is 0, the points that satisfy the equation ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, the x values for that will be x-axis intercepts. So that means they will go through the x-axis. So there's the points that satisfy the equation, let's say hypothetically, x squared minus 7x plus 10 equals 0. If you factorize, if you use a quadratic formula, if you do whatever you want, if you find those x points, they will be on the x-axis. So we will also know the x-intercepts, or intercept, if there are any. There might be times when there are no intercepts on the x-axis. You will always get an intercept on the y-axis though. Okay, so let's just have a look at this. Let's just start a question up. Okay, so we want to know the x, we call them roots. I think I've written this too here. Yes. The values for x that satisfy the equation when y is 0 are also called the roots. We spoke about that in the very last video when we were talking about functions, okay? So when f of x equals 0, those x values will also appear on the x-axis, okay? So let's just do a video. Let's just do an example, right? Because otherwise this video will get too long. So we want to know the x-axis. We're going to set y equal to 0. And we're still going to say 0 is equal to x squared minus 7x plus 10. Okay. Now, we want to find the x values that satisfy this equation. Tell me, guys, do you know how to do that? Yes, you do. You know how to do that in multiple different ways. So, we're going to do it very quickly. Because again, I think we've done this exact one. So, let's factorize 2 numbers at times to make 10 and add to make minus 7. That's going to be x plus, or that's actually minus. It's going to be x minus 5 and x minus 2. Because minus 5 times minus 2 is positive 10. Minus 5 plus minus 2 is negative 7. So it satisfies. That is still equal to 0, even though I've written it on the other side. It's still equal to 0, which means, what are our points? When you put a 5 in here, that bracket goes to 0. So 5 is one of them. What's the other one? Pause if you want to figure it out. It's 2. X is 2, because if you put a 2 in this one, the whole thing also goes to 0. So this is telling us actually something very important. Not only are these two solutions to this quadratic equation, they are also going to be dead on the x-axis. These are points, these are x points on the x-axis. So, and one more thing is, what's actually really handy, guys, is if a point is on the x-axis, you don't even need to figure out what the y point is, because it's going to be 0, because you're on the x-axis, okay? So one of these points, let's say that's about 2, is here, and the 5, let's say 5 is about here, is also there. And now we just need to link those 3 points together with a happy or a sad face. If A is positive, it's going to be a happy face. A is positive in this question, so we need to link them with a happy face. There's only one way to do it, guys. Happy face linking this point, this point, this point. Again, it's going to not be a very good picture because I'm not very good at drawing, but it's going to look something like that. That is the graph. Ideally, you'd make it a little bit neater than how I've done it. But that's the graph of y equals x squared minus 7x plus 10. I hope you can, I don't know how, what the range is on this camera. I don't know if you can see this, but that says y equals x squared minus 7x plus 10. If you can't see it, I don't know if you can. Okay, that's it, done, boom. That's like a bunch of marks. You've got all of the important points. Nice. Now, there is another point here that they might ask you about. Find out what that point is. We're going to talk about how you do that in the next video, because there's a lot to talk about in this. We're going to do one more example, and then we're going to go into the next video and talk about how you find these points here. These are called the vertexes, or you could call them minima or maxima. If it was a graph that looked like a sad face, you would be trying to find the maxima. This is clearly a minima because it's at the bottom. So there is also a way to find the coordinates of that point there. There's actually 2 ways. You can use something called calculus, which we will get onto in the far, far future. But you can actually complete the square to figure that out. So we're going to do that in the next video. So that you might be wondering, that's going to be in the next video if you're trying to figure that out. So let's do another example, guys. Okay then, guys. We're going to check out sketching the graph y equals 2x squared plus 7x minus 15. Okay. So let's just jot in our coordinate axes. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Obviously, in a real exam, you would make it nice and fancy, but nothing too fancy at the moment. Okay, you do not need to label, by the way, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, you don't need to do that. Just put the points in where the graph intercepts the coordinate axes, the x and y axes, and also the maxima and minima that we'll get to in the next video. So, how do we do it, guys? What's the first step? First of all, let's identify the y-intercept because that's the easiest thing to do. Remember, the y-intercept is always C. What's C? That's A, that's B, that's C. So C is minus 15. So let's say minus 15 is about there. It's going to be negative, isn't it? Because it's below 0. Okay. And now we're going to do something crazy. We're going to factorize. Okay. I feel like we should use the quadratic formula. So let's just do it. So minus b is going to be minus 7, so x is equal to minus 7 plus or minus the square root of b squared. That's 49. If you're lost, by the way, guys, we do have videos on quadratic formula, so this should just be sort of revisions. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Minus 4 times a is 2, times c is minus 15. Square root all of that, and we divide it by 2a. 2a is 2 times 2, which is 4. So x is equal to minus 7 plus or minus the square root of, well, hold on, 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times minus 15 is minus 120. So this is going to be 49 plus 120, because it's minus 120, okay, over 4. X is equal to minus 7 plus or minus the square root of, right, 49 plus 120 is 169. Divide the whole thing by 4. Okay, x is equal to minus 7 plus or minus, now you can use a calculator, square of 169 is 13. 13 squared is 169. Divide that by 4. X is equal to minus 7 plus 13. Guys, what is minus 7 plus 13? That is going to be 6 over 4. X is going to be minus 7 minus 13. It's going to be minus 20 over 4. And 6 over 4 is 3 over 2. And minus 20 over 4 is minus 5. So this is the critical bit. The x coordinates on the x-axis, the intersections, the roots, you could also say, are these points here. So we've got a 3 over 2, so we can call this point 3 over 2, or 1.5, 0. And this is minus 5. Minus 5 is going to be like here, I would say. Doesn't have to be like to scale or anything. Minus 5, 0. Remember, the y coordinate is just 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, because we're on the x-axis. Okay, now we need to link these together. Is it a happy face or a sad face, guys? A is positive. 2 is still positive, guys, so a happy face again. So we're going to come down, and we're going to have to go straight through that coordinate that I just did. And it's going to sort of shoot up like that. Guys, that should have gone straight through. I'm sorry, I apologise. It's going to look something like that. That is a really rubbish picture, I have to say. I'm actually going to sort of fix that a little bit. It's going to be, I feel like I've done you guys a disservice just with that. It's going to, oh my God. It's going to look something, oh no, this is awful. This is absolutely atrocious. It's not getting any better, is it? I just can't draw. Oh, I've messed it up, guys. I've messed it up. That's the point 0, minus 15. That's the point minus 5, 0. That's the point 3 over 2, 0. And this is the graph of y equals 2x squared plus 7x minus 15. Shouldn't be that difficult, but yeah. So you can use other methods. You don't need to use the quadratic formula. You can use completing the square. You can use the other methods that we've talked about, the one where you sort of make the two factors and do that. We've got videos on all of this. You can find some coordinates, you can plot them in, and in the next video that's going to come straight after this one, we're going to find out what that point there is. See you guys in the next video.